Hey, this is Kenneth Harkless. Today is June the 12th, 2010. We're out here at the Buster Britton Triathlon, volunteering with Team Magic. And today I think I'll talk about how did I get off in the running, some of my running accomplishments, and those kinds of things. So I think the first thing that we'll say is I think God gives us all the extra gene, and my extra gene was running. It's always been easy for me. I was a kid growing up. During off season, you'll see me running around the neighborhood trying to stay in shape. I was the one that everybody get pissed off with at football practice because I didn't mind running. I didn't mind running after. It was always fun to me, so I've always enjoyed running. In terms of road running, of course, I started off running, 5Ks back in the late 70s, early 80s. Did my first marathon in 1986. What was interesting about that first event was I announced to my wife, Sarah, that I wanted to do a marathon. And she said, well, what makes you think you can run 26 miles? And I had never considered that question. I didn't know the answer to that question, so I went out right here in Birmingham and decided I'd do a trial run. And I left UAB, ran over to East Lake Park, which is probably about 10 to 12 miles. Got water at one water station because I came from the old school and you didn't drink water, and I drank water at the end at the turnaround, and I came back and of course I hit the wall over on Montclair, and I started that run off at about 10 o'clock that morning. I didn't get home till about 5:30 that evening. So it taught me a whole lot about hydration. So that first marathon was the Vulcan Marathon in '86. I thought I did extremely well. I was one of the last people to start because I was afraid of going out too fast. I'd already had those experiences in shorter distances. And so I knew that if I started off slow and then build up, I'd be fine. And I think that first time was a sub 350 to 345, somewhere along up in there. And it took me another 10 years before I did my second marathon. And that second marathon, I pretty much trained on my own. Now, let me just put in a plug here for Al D'Amico, the grandfather of marathoning in the Birmingham area. He was my first coach. I met with a bunch of guys on Sundays. We would do long runs, and those guys were real serious about marathoning. I mean, they would talk about tenths of seconds. They knew every pace that you needed. And I was just out trying to have fun. Mike Royer, one of the local newscasters here in Birmingham, was one of my training partners. We actually ran that event together, and we still have a relationship to this day. And that's one of the neat things about running to me, is that it really does, it's the best of mankind to me. People that you normally wouldn't meet, or people you normally wouldn't mix with, you end up being with, and you learn a lot about other people. That second marathon was Chicago. I pretty much trained that one pretty much on memory based from that first marathon. Went up to Chicago on a work-related weekend, and I actually ran the race on Sunday and went to a seminar at about 5 o'clock that evening. My co-worker at the time was she just marveled. She just thought it was amazing that I could run a marathon and then come and do a workshop that evening. My first event with Team in Training, I'm also a coach with Team in Training. My first event with them was in 1997, preparing for the Alaska Marathon. It's just a miracle that some kind of way the co-worker that was up in Chicago with me, she also had gotten a little circular, a little brochure about that race, and she knew that I could do marathons, so she said, hey, you ought to try doing this. And of course, I'm not a big fundraiser. I don't like to ask people for money. It was just a godsend that actually we raised over $14,000 for that event. I had a friend of mine ran in honor of her dad, Pete Cohen at the time, and we raised a lot of money. The thing that was amazing to me about that event was that at the time I didn't know anyone that was affected by leukemia, but as a result of that, I had co-workers, friends, different people, including notes with their donations, talking about how they had been affected, some family member, some friend that they knew. And it was such a good event and such a good cause that I've been with it ever since. I try not to keep up with really the number of marathons I run. I'll be honest with you, I'm not interested in the number. I know it's been over 25. I'm more interested in PRs and stuff like that. For an old guy my age, I love to beat up on these young guys, even young gals if I have to. But I have a lot of enjoyment out of that, and it's really just the beauty of the whole event. I was talking to a guy earlier. For me, probably one of my most favorite things to do other than racing is to come out and support an event. And Race for the Cure for me is one event. I mean, halfway through the race, I'm on the sideline and I'm in tears, you know, just to see people out there moving around, being very, very proud of their accomplishment. I see grandfathers, grandmothers, families out there, survivors. And to me, it's the best of mankind, as I said earlier. And I heard one commentator talking about the Chicago Marathon and the start of it and the sea of humanity. And that's exactly the way that I see it. I have a friend of mine, Muhammad. He's from Iran, and we've been running together probably about 12 years now. And he talks about the support that you get out on the course. And he used the analogy one time, or the example one time, of playing soccer with his countrymen and saying they out there trying to hurt each other. Yet he is in America running a marathon, and people out there, that total strangers out there, want to give you a drink of water. They offering this, they offering any kind of help, any kind of assistance. And to me, it don't matter whether you're Republican, conservative, a liberal, Democrat, independent, a Tea Party, or whatever it may be. When you're out there running like that, it's the best of mankind again. I guess I could talk about my PR, but before I talk about my PR, I always like to say, if you really want to impress me, tell me your slowest marathon. My slowest marathon was right at 5 hours or something. I went out to the Nike Women's Marathon, and it's kind of hit the wall at mile 19, I believe it was, and I walked the last 7 miles, and I was really trying to get to the finish line to get the medallion for my daughter, and I couldn't figure out any other way to earn that other than to finish that race, and I finished the race. So that was my slowest. It was 5 hours and something. Al has actually, it's a picture on the internet somewhere. I look like a homeless guy because I got cold, because the last 4 or 5 miles is actually right next to the ocean, and got pretty cold. I was in chills. My best marathon time thus far, notice I said thus far because I'm still looking to do a PR, is a sub 3:05, and that was in Chicago. And again, my running buddy Al likes to talk about, he ran a 3:03, and I always remind him, I asked him what age was he, and he was in his 30s, and actually I was in my 50s when I did that, so I always like to give him a hard time about that. But my best marathon effort was up in Alaska. I was coaching with Team in Training, and I think we kind of totaled it up before the day was done. I had come in second place. I had ran a 3:13, and in addition to that, I started running people in, and we figured that I must have did at least 38 miles that day, because I got to the finish, ran some people in. So when our local participants, I told her I would run the last part of the race with her, and I actually jogged back to mile 20, and I realized, hell, I'm at mile 20. I need to get back to the finish line, and I stopped there and waited on her, and sure enough, so that was an additional 12 miles to the 26 that I'd already ran. You mentioned Boston. Boston is just, everybody knows that Boston is like the Super Bowl of marathons. There's nothing like that experience. I've seen some beautiful marathons, but it's nothing like Boston. I've actually ran Boston 5 times. My best experience with Boston was my first, because I decided I wouldn't race it. I'd just go up there and have a good time. I got in the back of the pack with a couple of friends of mine, Mary Creel and Janice, and we just had a good time. We took a lot of pictures. You thought I was a politician. I was shaking hands and kissing babies and hugging women, and we just had a really, really nice time. And my best Boston time thus far is, I think, a sub 3:15. And it was a tremendous effort. Just have a tremendous time. So I enjoyed running. I enjoyed volunteering, being around the whole atmosphere of it. It's just a turn on. You know, the coaching duties that I'm responsible for, just to see people get involved in the sport and continue with the sport and have success is just amazing. It's just an experience that I never thought that I would have. So thanks. See you next week.